vibes our way. Hello, hello, Cheryl. Welcome. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Cynthia. Good morning. Hi, Kylie. Hello, Thea. Thea, is that you on the phone again? Let me unmute you. That's Thea, right?
Yeah.
Good morning. Okay. Hi, Sarah. Good morning. I forgot how to pronounce your name again.
I'm Kalanit.
Kalanit, right.
Kalanit with a K.
Thank you for saying that again. I know you told me once before. Hello, happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let me in this. And let me open that. Okay, maybe we'll have a smaller live group today. Looks like we've got 11 so far. So let's just wait another minute for people to pop on before we start the topic today. So I'd love to just start with sinking in together. So let's go ahead and do that. You can even just close your eyes. And just start with taking a couple of the 1-2 breaths that we talked about in the first class. So in through your nose with a count of 4 and out, the breath can go out through your mouth with a count of 8. So you could just do that at your own pace. And we'll do 3 of those. And then take a second and I'm going to invite you to sense into your womb space. And for some of you, that may be something you've done with me before, or that may still be new. I know we haven't officially done this practice yet. But I'm just going to invite you to drop down into your pelvis. And your womb space is 2.5 inches below your navel, and then 3 inches back into the body. So as best as you can, just drop your awareness down into womb space. And if you've had your physical uterus removed, you still have the energetic imprint of womb space. And we'll just sit quietly here for about 30 seconds. Great, and then just taking a breath and bringing your awareness into our group today. Okay, let me just take a quick look again at everyone. Good morning, Jessica. Hi, Hannah. Okay. All right, so we're going to dive in to today's topic, which is the mother merge. And what we're going to be looking at today is how much of our emotional pain body is actually an energetic merge with our mother's pain body or other women from our matriarchal lineage. But the person that we merge the most with is our mother in our matriarchal lineage, because, as you can imagine, we spent 9 months inside of her. We were in her womb. As children, we were very energetically connected to her through breastfeeding. I know breastfeeding may not have happened for everyone, but when we're children, we're very energetically open beings, and we are like sponges. And so we merge with the people around us. And because mother is such a formative figure in our life, we do a lot of merging with her. We also merge with father. And we'll talk about that in another class. But today we're just going to be focusing on mother merge. But before we get into the topic deeper, one caveat that I want to say is that everything we're going to look at today and we're going to talk about today has absolutely nothing to do with blaming our mothers for anything. This is not a blame fest. Blame is a product of the pain body. Blaming people outside of ourselves is how the pain body feeds itself. And so that's not what this is about. So our mother was a human being who was struggling with her own pain body, her own wounding around being a woman, her own trauma that she lived through. And at the time, she was doing the best that she could with that. For a lot of us, we had mothers who grew up in an era where they didn't really have access to things like therapy or processing or joining a group about healing your pain body. So a lot of us had mothers with significantly heavy pain bodies. And they were growing up in an era where there was a lot of pain around being a woman. And a lot of very strict roles of what was expected to them as a woman. So it's just looking at the reality of this, not about blaming your mom for anything. Okay. So again, we spend 9 months in our mother's womb. And as energetically open children, we are soaking in our mothers. And most of our mothers had a lot of unprocessed grief and rage around being a woman. She had a lot of unprocessed grief and rage around her relationships with men, probably around her relationship with your father, probably around her relationship with her sexuality, and just being a woman living in a woman's body. Maybe there's someone on this course who had a mother who didn't have a really heavy pain body. If so, congratulations. But for most of us, we did have mothers who had a significant pain body or still have a significant pain body. And so you merge with this. If you remember from the first class, one of the things I said at the beginning was to hold the curious question as to who am I if I'm not this pain body? And the question, is this pain body even mine? And so we're really going to be taking a deep look at that today, because a lot of the pain body that you're carrying around, I can guarantee, does not belong to you. A lot of it is emerge with mom, and you're going to see that as we go through the content today. So technically, this is good news. What the issue is that because most people don't get the mother merge work or understand how it is, and this is what has been passed down to me through, I've mentioned him before, through one of my teachers, Faisal Moghadam, who created the diamond approach. What's happening for a lot of people, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, is you have certain emotional states and issues that you've probably worked on from multiple angles. Maybe you've been in therapy. Some people can be in therapy for years and years and years. And fundamentally, there's emotional states and issues that have just never shifted for you. The reason for that is because they are not yours. More than likely, they're merged with your mother. You cannot shift, heal, get rid of, process emotional states and issues that do not belong to you. You can only learn to disengage from them. And I'm going to be taking you through a disengagement process in today's class. But again, this is why people can be in therapy for years and years and still have issues that just don't shift. So I'm going to give a couple examples of mother merge issues. I'm going to talk about one from my own life, and then I'm going to give you a couple examples from some clients, because it's through examples that I think this will start to be the most illuminated for you. And again, I said in the first class, for those of you who have worked with me before, this is stuff you've heard before, but listen again, because you'll hear it at a deeper level and it'll start to become more embodied for you. As I said in the first class, I've been hearing my teacher, Faisal, say similar things for about 10 years. Okay. Hi, Jeannie. Jeannie, it says Jeannie on the go. Welcome, Jeannie on the go. Okay, so let me give you an example of one of the mother merge issues that I have worked through. And I would say I'm still working through it. It's an ongoing process. One of my mother's emotional places where she spent a lot of her time in is in the energetic frequency of resentment. So my mom has a lot of resentment. She has a lot of resentment towards my father, like tons of resentment towards my father, and just a lot of resentment in general. And this, again, is a really common thing for women from her era. And for a lot of my life, I struggled with resentment. I felt so resentful all of the time. And the truth was, I didn't really have a life that would justify all the resentment that I felt. I had a lot of resentment towards men. If I met a man and we started dating, I would feel resentful at him from our first date, and he had done nothing to justify me feeling resentful towards him. It was just this constant feeling of feeling resentful. And it felt normal to me. Like I just thought that was like normal to be resentful all the time. especially as a woman, because that's what I saw my mom as. So my mom was my first formative figure of what a woman is. And so what that meant for me is women are resentful. So it felt normal to me that I was resentful because women are resentful. It wasn't until I got in the diamond work with Faisal that I began to recognize this as, wow, is this my resentment? Why am I so resentful? What do I have to feel so resentful about? My life is pretty good. And I started to see that the resentment I was feeling was a merge with my mother. And that the resentment that I had towards men was a merge with her resentment towards my father. And we're going to talk more about how we project our mother's image of our father onto men in a class. We'll be talking about men. So we'll talk more about that. So I really began to see that this resentment was not mine, and I began to work with it as if it was not mine. And that's when it actually started to shift for me. Now resentment is something I would say I rarely feel. And if I do, I recognize it immediately as a merge with mom, and I know how to let that go. And I'm going to show you how to let these things go. So that's an example from my life. So we can merge with our mother's perpetual emotional states. Here's a story from a client. So I had a client who felt incredibly disappointed in men. Like she just thought men were the biggest disappointment ever. And I asked her, so what's happened in your life that has shown you that men are so disappointing? And in her life, she really couldn't come up with anything too significant. I mean, sure, some men, had let her down from time to time, but nothing so significant that she would have such a heavy burden of men are a deep disappointment. Like this was like men are deeply disappointing. And so I asked her, did your mother feel a deep disappointment at men? Did she feel a deep disappointment towards your father? And a big light bulb went off in her head because her father had become an alcoholic and her mother was deeply disappointed about this and would always tell my client how disappointed she was in her husband and my client's father. So when we began to look at her disappointment as a merge with her mother's disappointment, this began to shift for her. And she had been in therapy trying to work through this disappointment for years and years before that. But it never shifted until she began to recognize it not as her pain. I had another client who had deep shame about her sexuality and particularly just about her vagina. She felt all of the shame about having a vagina and her sexuality. And so I asked her, did your mother have a lot of shame about her vagina and about sexuality? And she was like, yes, my mother had tons and tons of shame. And she would tell me that these things were shameful. And if I, sometimes she would take her pants off as a little girl and kind of dance around and her mother would shame her for it. So we began to work with her shame as a merge with her mother's shame. And that began to loosen for her. And again, she had been in therapy before this, trying to work through her shame. And she never could work through her shame. So when we began to look at that this shame was not hers, this was a merge with her mother, and she began to work with a disengagement process, that's when the shame actually began to shift for her. Okay, so those are just a couple of examples. So why do we merge with mother? First off, just what I said, it's the mechanics of being a human and having been in her womb and being energetically open children. But there's another reason too. And that is because as children, when we looked up at our mothers. She was our life giver. She was our caregiver. She embodied the goddess. And as children, we looked at her, and for a lot of us, what we were seeing was a pretty miserable woman. We were seeing a woman who had a lot of pain. We wouldn't have had language for that as small children, but we were sensing it, we were feeling it, we were seeing it. And to be honest, it broke our hearts. We loved this woman so much. We were so connected to her. And to see her in so much pain was deeply, deeply sad for us. And so out of love, we thought that if we could take on her pain, we could help her, we could heal her. Most of you who've joined this class, I'm going to guess, are sensitive, empathic women, and you have a essence that is an essence of a healer. Probably a lot of you do work in healing modalities, or you just have that template. And so out of love, you took on her pain. But the tricky thing is that never helped her. You merged with her pain, but that never healed her. That never helped her. That only hurt you in the long run. Because we cannot heal someone else's pain. Now, as healers, we can hold space for healing for someone else, but we cannot process someone else's pain for them. That's their karma, or whatever word you want to use. That's theirs. That's theirs to do. They have choice over whether they want to do that or not. So that is, in part, a big reason why we merge with our mother's pain, is because we see a woman who's immersed so deeply in pain. And this is a woman we love so deeply. So of course we want her to feel better. We want a happy, juicy, turned on mother. So it was out of love. And it's a 100% impossible mission. I tell this to my clients. This is Mission Impossible minus Tom Cruise. You'll never, ever, ever accomplish the mission of healing your mother for her. It's 100% impossible. It was never your job to do in the first place. It's commendable that you've taken it on. And it will never happen. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to ask all of you to get out your journals. And we're going to take a little time here, and I'm going to have you make a list of the pain you saw your mother carrying around. And also, you might start to list the painful beliefs that you saw that your mother had because of her pain. So what emotional states, what painful emotional states was your mother collapsed in? And what painful beliefs did she hold because of those? So I'm going to give some examples. And I'm just going to drop all these examples in the chat, and then I'll read them. But I'll have them in the chat so you can look over them. I think I can do this. Okay, so these are just some common ones to get you thinking, but then I also want you to feel into the particular frequency of your own mother. But here's some common ones. So did your mother have a lot of rage and anger? Did she have a lot of rage and anger towards men? Did she have rage and anger towards your father? Did she have a lot of grief, unprocessed grief? Did she have a lot of unprocessed fear and anxiety? Resentment, that's a big one. Disappointment in men. Did she live in the frequency of being a martyr? A lot of us had mothers who were really martyred themselves, I should say. Was she sexually abused? Was she sexually shut down? Did she have difficulty receiving? Did she have a lot of blame? Did she blame everyone outside of herself? Did she blame your father for everything that was wrong? That's my mom. Did she emasculate men? Also my mom. Did she repress her emotions? Did she live more from masculine energy, so that space of doing accomplishments and goals, versus feminine energy, the space of flow and pleasure? Did she do a lot of sacrificing herself and then feeling resentful for it? Maybe did she believe being a woman was drudgery, just housework and obligation? Was she stuck in a lot of feeling obligated? Did she fear or lack trust in men? Maybe she believed women are the weaker sex. How did she feel about her body? How do you think she felt? Some of these you may not know the answer to, but you can intuitively sense into it. If you had a mother that hated her body, she may not have said that to you, but you can get a sense of it if you feel into it. Did she have shame about her body? Did she have shame about sex? Was she in the frequency field of shame a lot? Did she have this thing about being a good girl? Did she teach you that it's important to be a good girl? Did she complain a lot? Did she struggle with feeling abandoned? And was she in a relationship with an emotionally unavailable man? That's quite a lot, I know. There's a lot more out there, but I just wanted to give you some examples. So let's take 2 minutes, and we'll just sit quietly, and I want you to see what on this list is a yes to your mother. Put that on your list, and then feel into, like I said, the particular frequency of your own mother. And I'll mute myself, and I'll let you know when the 2 minutes are up. Okay, and so some of you I know are still writing, which is fine. And keep writing and listen, because the next step of what I want you to do with this list, and keep this list because other things are going to come to you, and you can come back and add them to the list, later. But now what I want you to do is I want you to look through the list, and I want you to put a little check mark next to the things that you too struggle with. So if you put down resentment, for example, if your mom had a lot of resentment and you too have a lot of resentment, you would put a check next to it. If you put down rage and you too struggle with rage, you would put a check. Anything that you see yourself in, just put a little mark next to that. And you can also spend some time writing down more if there's more. So we'll sit in quietly for another couple of minutes while you do that and really feel into it, really sense it from an energetic level. Don't just think about this from your head, really feel into this, and some other things might come to you. Okay. And again, you can come back to this. I suggest you come back to it. You will be so amazed if you really take the time to dive into this. Like I said, I've been doing this work on my own for 10 years with my teacher around this. And I'll still be in a process with him, and he'll say, "Doesn't that sound just like your mother?" And whoa, yeah, I missed that. I'll still find things that I missed 10 years later that are pain body that really does not belong to me. So this is really, really deep. This is very, very deep work going through the mother merge disengagement process. And I'm going to take you through that process now. We're going to pick one issue that you identified that both you and your mother have. And we're going to go through the process right now together. There's a couple of things I want to say before we do that. One is that if you are totally new to this and you haven't had private sessions with me, and this is your first time doing this process, you may or may not feel anything. It may not feel like an embodied process at first. In fact, it's more than likely that it won't. At first, this usually becomes an idea that you get intellectually, like, I can see that is similar to my mother. I can see that I have resentment and my mom had resentment. I can see what Sarah's saying. It makes sense. It usually takes a bit for it to become an embodied knowing. And it takes a bit to start to be able to hold a space and flex the muscles of what is you and what's not you. Carolyn says, holy moly, this class is super deep today. Oh, good. I like deep. Way to go, coach. You're doing an amazing job. Oh, thanks, Carolyn. Carolyn's a private client of mine. I appreciate that. Thank you, Carolyn, for your encouragement. So if this is your first time with this and you feel like I'm hearing what Sarah's saying, but I'm not totally feeling this process as we go through the process, and you may have a feeling sense of it, or you may not. I just want to name that that's okay. It took me a while for this to become really embodied in me, where I could go, oh, there's mom, disengage. Oh, there's mom, disengage. That's been a process. And when I'm working with clients, I usually see that there's a process to that too. They don't get it session one. Usually it takes a few sessions for them to really start to embody this work. And because of that, if you are not one of my private clients, I want to encourage you to consider that in conjunction with this class. In private sessions, we can go really deep into your particular places that you're merged with mom, and I can really help you at a really deep level hold space for this becoming an embodied process. A lot of you have already signed up for private sessions with me. If that's something you haven't and you're interested in that, if you haven't worked with me before, what we would do is set up a complimentary consultation where we would look into the resonance of if some private work is a resonance thing for us to do or not. I would hear what your struggles are at a deeper level, and I would want to make sure that some private work would be a good fit for you, and it would be a chance for you to hear a bit more about my private work to decide if you're a yes to that. So all of you have an invitation to set up that complimentary session with me if you have not worked with me before. So send an email if that's something you would like to set up. If you're a previous client, this is a good time to think about some more private sessions if there's places where you notice that you're stuck and you're not moving through them on your own. So you are also welcome to reach out about that. And a lot of you already are in private sessions with me. So if you don't totally get this today, it's totally normal, totally fine. Come back to the process again and again and again and again. If private sessions are not something you can do, come back and watch this process and use it again and again and again until you start to feel it in your body. That's where we want to get you landed, is I get this process in my body. So that's one thing I wanted to name about the process. The second thing is, and this is especially going to be true for those of you who have already started working on the mother merge, is one of the things that can come up as we begin to disengage from our merge with our mothers. One of the things that can come up, and I actually said this to Kelly, I think last in the first class, because it was starting to come up for her. She's had a couple of private sessions with me, so this was starting to come up for her. But what can come up as you disengage from the ways you're merged with your mother is feeling like you're betraying or abandoning her. Because again, you took on her pain because you loved her. So starting to disengage from it can feel like you're abandoning her. If that starts to come up for you today, I want to name that's totally normal. It's a good sign. It means you're starting to deepen in the process. And I just want to name, you're not abandoning her. You're not betraying her. You're not leaving her behind. What's happening is you're just disengaging from her pain body, which was never yours to begin with and is not your responsibility. My personal experience with this mother merge work is the deeper I got into it, I actually felt more connected to my mother because I was no longer so deeply merged with her pain body. And I could feel where I had a, whatever word you like to use, I could feel where I had a soul connection to her, because our mother is one of our soul connections. So I was more able to feel, and still, she's still alive, I'm more able to feel a connection to her when I'm not merged with her. And when I'm around her, which I'm not that often, she lives in Illinois, but she came to visit not that long ago, I'm more able to stay centered in myself and just have compassion for how much pain she's in when I'm not merged with her pain, which is lovely. I feel more connected to her, not less. But it can come up that you feel like you're betraying or abandoning her. So I just wanted to name that. Cynthia sent in a question. What if my life has been full of choices that match my mother's issues, being with abusing or abandoning men rather than just feeling abandoned by men? Your examples were that these clients had vague feelings, but I feel my actions matched my mother's. Yeah, totally common. So we will absolutely 100% do that. If your mother was in a relationship with an abusive man, it's very common that you'll end up in a relationship with an abusive man. If your mother was in a relationship with an emotionally unavailable man, it's very common that the daughter will end up in a relationship with an emotionally available man. Absolutely 100%. A lot of the pain body choices that we're making are the same pain body choices that our mothers made. And so those examples, there were actions that were coming out of those examples. So for example, the client who felt disappointed in men, she was breaking up with good men because she was convinced they were disappointed. So there were pain body actions that were coming out of those pain body frequencies. So the client who had a lot of shame around her sexuality, she was in a relationship where her sexual relationship with her partner was dismal, which was just the same as her mother's. Kylie says, yes, I had my first son with someone who was almost exactly like my stepfather. Yeah. And this particular place around recreating our mother and father's relationship, we're also going to look at in the class about men, because we'll be looking at that dynamic at a deeper level, because we will absolutely recreate our mother's pain body behaviors and her actions and create a life really similar to her. So it's good you're seeing that, Cynthia. But as you start to disengage from the merge, oh my goodness, you will create a totally different life. I used to, all of the men in my life, I can't tell you how similar they were to my father. And my father's not a bad man, but he was not an emotionally available, present man. And that's who I dated for most of my life. And now I have the most emotionally available, present, loving man I could ask for. You couldn't ask for a more present, emotionally available man than Gavin. And that came from disengaging from the mother merge. You will make different choices when you disengage from the mother merge. Okay, so let's just take a little stretch before we do this process, because I know you've been sitting. You can stand. I'm going to stand and stretch. You can do that with me if you want. If you need to run to the bathroom, you could do that really quick. We'll just take just a little minute here. I'm going to get a little bit more water, and then we're going to do the process. Okay. I forgot to mention my electricity came back on this morning, so I'm at my house. If you were following my post, our electricity was down for 4 days. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's all settle in. So first I want you just to pick one of the issues that you identified. A good one to start with is one of the emotional states. Those are usually a little easier than an emotional belief. Looks like someone's unmuted. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So like if your mother had a lot of rage or resentment, that might be a good one to start with. But you pick, if something else stands out to you and you're like, I really want to work on this, pick whichever one really stands out to you. Okay, so you can close your eyes. And I want you to start to feel into, if you picked an emotional state, to start to feel into that. If you picked an issue, feel into where you can feel that issue. Like if you feel, let's say, shame. Well, shame is a feeling. So if you pick shame, feel into it and actually bring the shame up. If you picked rage, feel into that. If you picked resentment, feel into that. If you picked a painful belief, feel into where you're holding that painful belief. See if you can locate this in your body, like we did last class, and notice what it feels like. Get familiar with it on a sensation level. And now what I want you to do, this is a really simple process. It's almost deceptively simple. But the first thing I want you to do is just to ask the curious question. What if this is mom's? What if this rage is mom's? You could also say, could this rage be mom's? Is this rage mom's? So just hold those curious questions and see what you notice as you curiously ask that question. And now I want to invite you to say to yourself, if this is mom's, if this, I'll just keep going with the example of rage, but you turn it into your issue. If this rage is mom's, I allow it to leave. So I want you to say that to yourself and then notice what happens. You might also try, sometimes for me, just that question is enough, but sometimes for me, I need a little more disengagement. So what I do if I notice that I merged and just that question doesn't quite disengage it, I will see myself pushing my mom energy out into space, out away from me and out into space. Another thing that works for people is seeing an energetic cord between you and mom and see yourself cutting that cord. You can try either one of those and see how they work for you. Just seeing what you notice. And so now the final step in the process is I want you to come back to your own body. And I want you to see if you can locate a feeling that feels like you. I can't tell you what this feeling is because you're a unique expression of the divine. You're a unique expression of the essence of the goddess. Some places to check in your body would be your heart space, your vagina, your pelvis. See if you can't feel you. When you feel it, you know it. And it's usually very simple, like, oh, this is me. See if you can't locate that. And if you can locate it, I want to see if you can't soften into it. Not trying to make it do anything, but just soften and breathe into the essence of you. Good, and then taking a breath and bringing yourself slowly back into this space. And I'm going to invite you to take out your journal and just briefly journal about this experience. What happened for you? What did you notice? Was it frustrating? Did you feel like you could disengage? And when you did, what did you notice? Okay, and so you can always come back and journal more. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to put you in breakout rooms with, I'm going to try and do just groups of 2. There may be a group of 3, and just give you a chance to share with each other. So each person will get about 2 minutes just to share with another participant what this was like for you. And I'll send you a, what do they call it, broadcast when it's time to shift partners. I just always like to try and have a moment in the class where you get to connect with another participant. So I'll create those breakout rooms, and then whoever name is first in the alphabet, you can go first, and then I'll let you know through a broadcast when it's time to shift to the next participant. Okay, so let me make those really quick here. Okay, we should be ready to go.
like full of love. Yeah.
Okay. Make sure everyone's muted. Welcome back. Okay. Okay, great. So again, no matter what your experience of this was today, even if you felt like you didn't feel much today, I want to invite you to come back to this process again and again, and to really hold this as an inquiry. What's mom's? Hold it as a curious inquiry, and you'll be surprised at how much you find that is not yours. And the more you disengage from that which is not you, the more you'll land back home in the essence of you. Because again, you're not this pain. You're not this pain body. Neither is your mother. She's not her pain body either. She just doesn't have this class where she gets to find that out, unfortunately. Okay, so now is time we're going to switch into Q&A and laser coaching. If you would like a turn, you go into participants, and there's a space in there for you to raise your hand. There's a button for you to raise your hand that you press. Let me see who's raised their hand. If you're on the phone, it's either *6 or *9. I forgot which one it is. But to raise your hand, *6 or *9. Okay, so we'll start with Katrine. Okay, you're unmuted. Let me find.
Wonderful.
Here you are.
I hope you can hear me okay, because my laptop says that my bandwidth is low.
I can hear you.
So if I get choppy,
Yeah,
good, wonderful.
Yeah.
My question is, when I went through the list of like behaviors, like where do I recognize my mom and what do I recognize in myself, it was pretty obvious that, let's say, like I took on a lot of the same limiting beliefs and the same, let's say, nonsense ideas about myself from her, and I noticed that I'm very aware of that too, where I learned that, but it also feels like I can't just, let's say, like shed it as easily as if it's more like, let's say, like knowing where you got a transmittable disease from, but now you nonetheless have it, and the origin per se doesn't, like knowing the origin doesn't help by itself. And I was wondering how, let's say, after all these years where I, let's say, carried around these same beliefs and carried around these same behaviors, how to better shed them, or how to better shed them.
Sure, it's a good question. So you just come back to the process again and again and again. That's really all it is. If I had a magic bullet, I would totally give it to you. I wish I had a magic bullet. And what I know this to be is just something you return to again and again. So the first step is the noticing, is the, oh, wow, that's mom. Oh, wow, that's mom. Oh, wow, that's mom. And as you notice that, you're actually starting to create some space around it. You may not notice it at first, but suddenly this went from being me to mom. And just in that noticing, you are creating some space. So feel hopeful that is happening. I can guarantee that it is, right? You just have space around it when you start to see that it's not yours. And
Yeah.
so the beliefs or the pain body behaviors start to arise. As you're going about your daily life, you may not have time to sit down and do this whole process, right? Like sometimes you're going to start noticing these things as you're in the middle of your life, and you might not have time to sit down. And so a quick thing you can integrate in is when you notice it, what I'll do is I'll just go, oh, hi, Mom. Like I immediately go, oh, that's Mom. Hi, Mom. And for me, that injects a little bit of humor, and just saying that injects a little bit of space. And so over time, and you haven't been in this process so long.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, over time, it's going to create more and more and more space for you to land into who you are. It's just, my teacher, he's from Kuwait. I don't understand this phrase at all, but he calls it tying the camel. I don't know how you tie a camel, but what he means is you go back to the practice again and again and again in the daily life. Like I said in the first session, what you get out of this class is how much you stay with the process in between the sessions. I wish I had a more magical answer for you, but really it just comes back to—
No, that's all right.
Yeah, again and again and again, just do the simple process.
Thank you.
My pleasure. It's a good question. Do you mind muting yourself? Okay, so then we've got Thea. Let me unmute you. Okay, you're unmuted.
Okay, hi. So I can imagine you get this question a lot, but my intellectual mind has to ask it. The mother connection, I totally get that, but I also feel like there's so much in our culture, like our collective unconscious, that is pain body, about being, you know, a woman in patriarchy, a woman in Western society. And then my mind saying, well, I could release it from my mother, but it's also coming from all directions: media, religion, you know, other women.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So
absolutely, yeah. So we start with mother because she's the formative template for who a woman is. And again, because we were in her womb for 9 months, I can guarantee she's the deepest merge. So we start there, but we absolutely do merge with what I call the collective female pain body, and we're actually going to have a whole class on that. That will actually—
Oh, cool. Okay.
That will be the next class. I sent out a list of the topics. The next class was going to be men, but I realized these two things, the mother merge and the collective female pain body, go together. So I want to do that first. So next class, we're going to be talking about exactly what you're bringing up. And you're absolutely right. There is a collective female pain body that we merge with, and we'll be talking about that next session. And you will also just merge with other people in your life. And so this process works for all kinds of places and people that you've merged with. We're just starting with mother because she's formative.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, Cheryl sent a question. I have a question. If you heal, separate, Thea, well, let me just mute you. If you heal, separate from mother merges, will you heal also your daughters if they are carrying this mother merge from you? That's a really good question. There's two answers to that. One is yes, because your daughters, you have daughters, Cheryl? Yeah, okay. So one daughter, okay. So just like you, two daughters, okay. Well, let me just unmute you. Do you mind?
No.
Okay. So this is a really good question. So just like you merged with your mother, your daughters merged with you. And as you heal the pain body from your mother that you merged with, your daughters have less of a pain body from you to merge with. So this does branch out. It branches out in a healing in both directions. It branches out in healing with your relationship with your mother, and it branches out in a healing with your relationship with your daughters. And you will start to become embodied in your own essence. Part of your own essence as a woman, and we'll get to this in another class, is feminine energy, sensuality, sensual energy. And you'll start to embody that, and your daughters are going to feel that, and that will impact them in a positive way. So it's beautiful work to do as a mother when you have children, because the woman is the woman in the family is the strongest energetic. She creates the energetic field of the family. She is the energetic field that the children are growing up in. And so you'll start to create a different field for them, one that has less pain body and more of you, your essence, pleasure body.
But can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Say I merged with my mother with her disappointment in men.
Yeah.
And then because I carried this, my daughters now have this that they're carrying of mine.
Yes.
If I separate my disappointment, if I say that's never was really mine and separate, will they still be carrying that because it was something that I had at some point?
Yeah, they'll have their own work to do.
Okay.
Right. And they'll get to choose as sovereign beings whether they do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And we're not blaming you that your daughters.
Right.
Don't take any blame on.
No, I'm just curious if,
Yeah, they'll have their own work to do, but as you shift it, it will shift for them too.
Okay.
Because they're in a continual merging with you unless they get the mother merge process and know how to disengage.
Right.
You'll have less of it for them to feel.
Okay.
So it does impact them in a positive way.
Okay.
They will have to do their own work.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Really good question. Okay. Anyone else? No one else has a hand raised. Anyone else like some support around this or some questions? Let's see if anyone else threw a question in here. Kylie says, I'll make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Okay. Kylie says, when my mom finally got into a healthy relationship within a couple of years, so did I. Yeah, it's really powerful. Really, really powerful. Yeah, that's just showing you the depth of the mother merge. Okay, so let's see. Jessica. Okay, Jessica raised her hand, so we'll go to Jessica. Oh, and then we'll go to Kelly. Let me find Jessica. I just like to pin you guys when it's your turn. Okay, hi, Jessica.
Hi. I have a question about like a particular belief. I know that like I wrote down a number of the things that I know are pretty clearly from my mother.
Yeah.
But one belief that I have that is a little less clear, but I'm wondering about, is I've had this idea of like, what's the point in even getting close to a man? Because, because they're good. Like, and underneath that is like, because they're going to hurt me anyway. They're going to be emotionally unavailable anyway. They're going to be this blah, blah, blah anyway. So what would be the point of getting into a situation like that? And that, like, I'm just wondering where, I'm not sure if that comes from my mother or not.
So what if you pose the question, what if it is? What happens? What if that is mom? What's the point? Try not to pose it from your head. Try and sense into it.
Yeah.
What if it's like, just use the process on it. So what's the point of even getting into a relationship with men? They're just going to disappoint me anyways. What if this is mom?
Yeah, so I'm trying to just drop out of trying to figure that out.
Yeah, again,
um,
you're new with this. This is totally new. So try, if this is mom's, I let it go, and just see what you notice. And you may not notice
Mhm.
anything because it may not be. We're just checking. This is whenever these pain body comes up, I want you to always check and see if it's mom's first. So if this is mom's, I let it go and see what you notice, if you notice anything.
um, I feel like just a little bit more peace, but I'm still not clear if it,
That's okay.
like if it really is hers. But
That's great. So I'm going to name that is a pointer so that this is hers. When you pose the question, this is for everyone. So you're doing great teaching for everyone right now. Thank you for your bravery. When you pose the question, what if this is mom's? If this is mom's, I let it go. And you feel even a tiny bit more light. So often people say, I feel a tiny bit more light, a tiny bit more peace, a tiny bit more ground, a tiny bit more space. Usually it's one of those things. That's a pointer to you that this is a merge. And all you may get is a tiny bit of peace, space, ground, or lighter. Just a tiny bit at the beginning. But that is a pointer. So that's good teaching for everyone.
so when you say to just keep working on it over time, does that just basically mean just doing the exact same process with the same thing, just
Yeah, anytime
repeating
you know
it?
that thought coming up, what's the point? Say, what if that's mom's? And then if you can, stop and see if you got time to do the process, which you see it isn't very long, maybe 5 minutes. And if you can't, try the, oh, there's mom. Every time you do it, you'll create a little space around this belief, this pain body belief being yours. Because it's not just a belief, it's painful in there. This deep disappointment, right? And what the point, that's a deep pain. So every time you use the mother merge process on it, you're going to have a little more space from it, and a little more space, and a little more space. And I'm going to name, I don't know how many women here know of the Enneagram, but I know Jessica's a 9. And 9s, my teacher says, you guys do more than merge. We talked about this on the phone. You unionize. And so for you, it more than likely is going to be just a little bit of space at a time. But over time, that will create significant space.
Mm-hmm. I'm also just, it's interesting because you called it disappointment twice, and that's not what I was thinking of it as. But now I'm like, huh, that might be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you thinking of it as?
Kind of a just a giving up, like a what's the point? I'm just going to give up. But that could come from disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Keep with that curious thread, and then keep with the thread. Is this disappointment mom's? Was she disappointed in men? To the point of, what's the point of even engaging here? And we can also look at, some of this is going to be collective feminine pain body merge, which we'll be looking at next class. Because that lives in the collective psyche of women. Like, honestly, disappointment around men. It's so common.
Well, and can it also just come directly from my own father?
Well, yeah, and we're going to look at that in the men class.
Yeah. Okay.
But often there's a place where we merge with how our mother sees our father. We'll merge with that and actually lose seeing our father through our own eyes. And we'll look at that in class 4.
Yeah, it's interesting because my mom kept whatever she was feeling about my dad. A lot of the times she kept it. She just kept it contained.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it was.
Those are the deepest places that we merge with this unexpressed stuff that we could feel in there as sensitive children, but nobody freaking talked about it. Those are
Yeah, that was my family. We just didn't talk about it.
totally. Yeah, so that's where we merge the deep with the stuff that was never said, because we can feel it, because we're these open, energetic children. We can feel it. Yeah. Okay, good. Good. Thank you for taking a turn. That was really good teaching for everyone. Okay, did I say Kelly next? I think I did. Okay. And then Hannah, I see your hand, so you'll be after Kelly.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. I love that last piece, Jessica. Awesome. Thank you. Because that part about the feeling the peace as a pointer, that just really resonated because it validates my experience of kind of unraveling, where am I in this? Where is she, my mom? Where am I? And something about just honoring that piece as a pointer. Love that. Love that. So just 2 quick things that I wanted to just name because I love the power of this group and being witnessed, and I really appreciate it. Sarah, when I feel, when you mentioned something about earlier, the heartbreak, that is such a piece for me around a pathway to my grief, is to, like, it's so something I want to spend time with, but I just noticed I got really pinged when you named heartbreak as a response to seeing our mothers, my mother, in pain. Because my whole childhood, I felt like I was geared around trying to take that on to lessen it for her.
Yes.
So it's just a big piece for me. And I just, like, as you've been guiding us around the rage and the grief work, it's such, like, I know taking it on is a place where I can access rage. And underneath, I can really feel like if I honor the heartbreak and witnessing her, it's just a pathway to my grief. So I'm really grateful for that because I want to be with that more.
Yeah. And
so thank you for that.
Yeah, let me name that as you do that. That's part of disengaging. Because you felt this heartbreak as a child. That was true and real for you.
Yeah.
To see your mother in so much suffering.
Yeah.
Oh. So it brings you back to you, even though it's, people say it's no fun to feel grief. I actually kind of like it. It clears me out. Like I'm good with it. So it brings you back to you and clears you out. So that's
yeah, it feels like it's a presence. It brings me to presence here.
Yeah.
The other question or just thing that really got me was, and you just hit on it with Jessica a moment ago, but I feel like my mom was stoic, was really held down and tight around her own ways that she was not respecting herself with men. And I used to see it as her being a doormat, basically. So I felt that, saw that. She didn't name it, give it any credence at all visually or out loud. So there's a way where I internalized it and I felt it. And so what I'm wondering and what I'm imagining is that it's still hers, even though I couldn't see it, obviously. But I took it on so deeply where I felt and internalized that shame so much. I can feel it in my vagina right now.
Yeah.
The way that I felt her disrespect herself. And it's so intense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful to notice that. Again, the unspoken pieces, and most was unspoken. Most of us didn't have parents who sat down and said, honey, I have a lot of shame and let's talk about that. So most of this was unspoken, but you felt it. You were aware of it. And you were feeling what she was not allowing herself to feel. because for her to allow herself to feel everything that was going on in there would have been, she wouldn't have even had the support system for that. So her locking down was actually intelligent because she didn't have a support system to actually feel. And she would have had to confronted the behaviors that she was participating in with men, which meant confronting, how do I make a living, no, struggling, you know, all of that stuff. So much would have had to been confronted. So her locking down was, and smart, it was the smartest thing she could have done.
Yeah. And just one more piece around that. I feel like that just linked me, even though my grandmother and my mom had totally different scenarios with men, the similar face of how they were with their feelings and thoughts and truths, stoic, you know, just shoved back and, you know, pretend, let's pretend. So I feel the lineage of that.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Good to see you. Okay, we'll go to Hannah. And that looks like that'll be it for today, unless anyone else raises their hand, which you're more than welcome to do. Okay, so let's go, Hannah.
Hi.
Let me just find you.
Yes.
Where are you? Where is Hannah? Here she is. Okay, let me pin you. Okay, hi Hannah.
Hi, Sarah. I just got something Kelly shared, just kind of really pinged a thing in me around really feeling the stuff for her mom in her vagina. And I mean, I'd already been noticing it, but it kind of just connected something really big for me, because my mom, or what I've really been feeling, is how much like the rage, the martyrism, the victimhood, resentment, like towards my dad specifically. And so I was working with rage, and I could feel, it was very interesting when I was trying to feel where it actually was in my vagina. And it was like, whoa. And so when Kelly said that piece, it just connected with me that, you know, as you know, I took care of my dad for 10 years after she left. And a big part of all this stuff was her victimhood and martyrism and resentment of having to take care of him. And I feel like a lot of the stuff in my vagina is around having to take care of him, doing something against what my body wanted.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of connected that maybe I also merged with her doing things against her body that they didn't want. And so this is, the stuff in my vagina is beyond just my 10 years.
Yes. Well, you took on her role. Do you see? You stepped into her.
100%. And that's where it's like, when we're talking about, repeating patterns of our moms, I almost wrote in the comment being like, guys, ladies, I took care of my dad for 10 years after my mom did for, 25. So that runs so deep for me, and the resentment around that. But it just finally, on a consciousness level, connected that I think the vagina stuff for me is around that her body stuff as well as my body stuff.
Yeah.
Not me. And that, that's kind of big. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
That is big.
Yeah. And that's not even what I had a question about or wanted to talk about. That was just.
Okay. Well, real quick, we're going, for everyone, we do hold a lot of the pain body that we hold that's ours and not ours, we hold in the pelvis. And so if you haven't gotten the book recommendations, I really do recommend them as supplementation to the course. The Pussy Reclamation is a really good book around this. And then Tammy Kent's The Wild Feminine is a really great book about this. And we're going to work with this a bit in the next class around the collective female pain body as well, and how we hold a lot of that in the vagina. And we're going to do an exercise of making amends with our vagina. So just that'll be part of next class.
Yeah, I have the second book, The Wild Feminine. I've read some of that one, but the Pussy Reclamation, someone else was like, I want to do this. And so I want to get that.
Yeah.
But what I noticed in the actual process was, and the question was, Like I worked with the rage and I felt it leaving my body. And then I felt like a lightness and a joy. And I wanted to also share with the group that in the moment that I could feel my own essence and joy, I felt this amazing awe and like kind of like tears in my eyes to the beauty of the women in this group. Like each woman who spoke, the softness, the beauty, the willingness and desire to heal, all of that, I really felt it. And I wanted to share that.
Thank you.
But question I had was, once I kind of shifted her stuff, it was almost literally like this tumbling in my system that was like, okay, this one's not yours either. Let's do this one too. Okay, what's this? Who's this? This is not me. And it was just like the floodgate.
Yeah.
And I noticed there was stuff, clearly my dad, clearly my brother.
Yeah.
And so I assume that this process can be applied to
Yes.
any of them. That this is we're starting with mother, but that this specific process can be like, oh, that's my brother.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Again, we start with mother because she's formative. And yes, you do merge with father. We'll talk about that in the class on men. You do merge with your siblings, you merge with your friends. So you can use this process with everything. Some of what you merged with your brother, you might even track. Was that your mom too? Was that a merge he had with your mom, or was that a merge he had with your dad? Sometimes you can bring those back to mom and dad, because that's more of the root for your siblings. But definitely this process you can use this with everyone.
Yeah. It's interesting because I actually feel the sexual shame is from my brother more than my parents.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, looks like we got a couple more hands up. So we'll go to Cynthia and then Sarah. Cynthia, hold on, let me find you. And then I think there's also some questions in the chat, so I'll be sure to get to those.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get the beginning of the exercises and I had to reboot Zoom. But I'm like, I don't want to leave this feeling this shitty. I don't want to leave this session with the group feeling this like, yeah, just generally angry. And feeling that it's mine more than my mom's, and feeling like it's more my dad and the men and my grandfather, like just this whole sort of lineage, patriarchy more than my mom. And I guess I'm only speaking up because like I'm leaving on Tuesday to see my mom, and by just vocalizing I might be able to change the energy of how, you know, to use, I think it's Jessica's term, like a hopelessness.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. And so where did you get any of the process? So you dropped off during the process?
Yeah, I think I didn't. I mean, I didn't drop in probably deep enough, and then I did find a bit of my essence in the back of my head. I think I'm really deep. I'm being affected by just Xing every one of the, you know, the list.
Yeah.
And really owning it. You know, a lot of this is shit that's been done to her and I.
Yeah.
Shit that she didn't protect me from. But so I'm leaving our second classroom with just like, ugh, I don't want to face this day.
Yeah, that's understandable. So if you could check everything on the list, I'm curious what has you go to, well, I think it's this other thing and not mom.
It's almost like regardless of whose it was, I'm at like a point of reckoning in my own life, at my change of life. What's done is done, you know, that kind of thing. What was done to me was done to me. Rather than actually like pointing fingers and blaming, it's like there's a hopelessness in like it doesn't even matter where it resides or where it's coming from. I'm just carrying all of this. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm imagining when you go back and you're able to be with the process, that might help what you're grappling with here. And just to remind you, this isn't blaming mom. Like it's not, oh, this is your crap mom. This is just recognizing the energetics of what happens. If you could check out all those things on the list, you have mother merge, like all of us do. And so encourage you to go back and actually be with the disengagement process. It sounds like you got the coming home to your essence process, but it's important that you get that disengagement process. And that I would be curious as you work with that, if you worked with some of the hopelessness, and even see if that's emerged with mom.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So what does it feel like? So you check off all these things on your list, and I get that's overwhelming, but could there also be some relief? Like, wow, all this stuff's not mine? Like all of this pain body is not mine?
And then when you say that, and I went through that myself, I can definitely see the loyalty still existing.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's what's coming up now with even wanting to move to like, this is patriarchy, and I'm not saying none of that has impact, but that might be not wanting to confront the loyalty that you have to mom, to be merged with her pain body. And it's a deep thing. It brings up a lot, like I said, abandoning her, betraying her. And I want to invite you to be with a curious question. Why do I want to stay loyal to my mother's pain? Why do I want to stay loyal to other women's pain? Is this serving me? Is this loyalty serving me? And we're going to get into the loyalty piece more next session as well, because it's a big thing, especially in the collective merge.
I'm so glad I said something, because the question is already answered, and that is really feeling that profound abuse from men.
Yes.
So I get to have a tribe that helps keep me safe.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so one of the things is to, when I go through this again, it's really choosing one emotion, one type of merge. I think I feel overwhelmed because I have all the list checked off.
Let's start with one. But see if you can't even notice the overwhelm as a potential merge.
Too easily overwhelmed, yeah.
Yeah. You could look at the list and feel relief. None of that's mine. So see if you can't not make yourself shift to the relief, but just notice that that's also a possibility. And that the immediate overwhelm is also a merge with her. So just start to kind of hold the possibility that you could have a different relationship with this. You could have a feeling of relief instead of overwhelm if you're not merged with mom's overwhelm.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tiring when you have a whole bunch of merges in your pain body.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I'm so glad I said something. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling lighter.
Yeah, you are. So the process is already working on you. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you spoke up. Okay, and then we'll go to Sarah. Okay, you're unmuted.
I get nervous.
Everyone does. Don't worry. I think you're cool.
Okay. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this as well, but and maybe I should check my Enneagram and see if I've actually formed more of a union than a merge. Mm-hmm. But I've actually found myself even mimicking physical symptoms.
Yes.
That I would watch my mom laid up for days at a time with this mysterious, unexplained back pain. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like the martyr mentality. It's almost like she almost enjoyed the attention or the pain. Yes. And sure enough, when I turned 30, I was married and I had this back pain out of nowhere.
Yes.
I had no injuries, no reason.
Yes.
And I really noticed that it was almost like a learned behavior.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I just felt like I needed to bring that up in case anyone else had also shared physical symptoms.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I should probably add that in when I talk about the different things you can merge with, because definitely you merge with, Faisal calls it, you're merging with your mother's structure. And so that can include her physical symptoms as well, most definitely. So that's another thing to be curious about when physical symptoms come up. Is this even mine? I've seen, in my work with Faisal in a group, people will come in and like total hip pain, and he'll guide them through seeing the hip pain's not theirs, and they'll walk out with no hip pain.
Yeah.
So absolutely, you merge with that. And you made another good point that's great teaching for everyone. So you're being a great teacher for everyone. Thank you for your bravery, even if you're nervous.
Yeah.
So yes, physical symptoms. And then another thing you said was that when you got married, the back pain came on. For those of you that are married or considering getting married, what I've seen, I've never been married, but what I've seen in other people in the diamond work and what I've seen with clients is that when you get married, mother merge tends to come out even stronger because you saw your mother when she was married. If your mother was married, but if your mother was married and then you get married, it's really common that then mother merge will come out stronger. So it doesn't surprise me that came out once you got married.
Okay.
Cool. Great question. Thank you. Okay, so there's some questions in the chat, and then I think we're good for today. Let's see. Sarah, can you post the books in the Facebook group? I didn't get that email. Yes. Actually, let me write that down so I don't forget. Post books in Facebook group. I said I was going to do that and I forgot. Okay. And Kylie says, can you tell us more about this number thing, the Enneagram? Yeah, the Enneagram, there's so much I could say about it. I would suggest if you're not familiar with the Enneagram and you're curious about it, you know what I'll do is in the book recommendations, I'll recommend a book about the Enneagram, because for me to try and get into it now, it's such an in-depth thing, and I'm not an Enneagram expert. Jessica says it's a personality typing system. Yeah, it is that. It's more than that too. So one of the hard things in the Enneagram, one of the heart of it is that in childhood, we become fixated in a certain way depending on your type. And it can be helpful to know that in the pain body work, because it's impacting the way that you're relating to the world through your pain body. So it's helpful knowledge. I don't have it as a recommendation in the class because it's just so in depth that trying to go into it in this class really wouldn't work. But if you want to know more about that, I'll give you a book recommendation for that in the Facebook group. Kylie says she can dive in and do research. Jessica says, yes, it has to do with your wounding as a child and how you've learned to cope. It's pretty complex. Yeah, it's very complex. It's really, really complex. Yeah, exactly. So when we experience wounding, there's certain ways that we cope with it or become fixated with it that different types have. If you're a type 4, you'll have a similar way that you become fixated with other type 4s and so on and so forth. Okay, so next week, there's no live class. This is so you have time and space to work with this mother merge process. This is, again, so much of your pain body is your mother's. I can guarantee you're going to see this more and more. So I wanted to give you time to really work with this process and to also to continue working with the processes from the first class. Keep posting in the Facebook group. I'd love to hear from you. I'm actually going to be doing some live streams in the Facebook group between now and our next class. So watch out for those. So I'll do some live streams to go a bit deeper with things from the first class and from this class as well. I didn't want to overwhelm you with so much. So I'm going to trickle those in a bit of a trickle down way in the live stream. So watch out for those. And then when we meet again, I forget what the date is, but not next Saturday, the Saturday after that, the class will be on healing the female collective pain body. And then stepping into our authentic expression as a woman, into our feminine essence. Like, what is that even? What is it even to be in our feminine? We'll do the exercise I've been talking about connecting to our womb space. So you'll get that in the next class. So that's everything that's going to be in the next class. And then the class after that will be on men. We'll be talking about the father wound, the merge with the father, and the pain body that women carry around men, and questioning our painful beliefs around men. And then the final class will be on looking at our sexuality, the pain body that we're carrying around our sexuality, and how to step into an authentic expression of our sensuality and our sexuality. So that's kind of the lay of the land for what the next classes will entail. If you have questions that come up between now and next class, I encourage you to ask them of me in the Facebook group, because more than likely your questions are other people's questions too. And so other people will benefit from you asking them there. If it feels really, really private and you don't feel comfortable, you can feel free to send me a PM, or you can send me an email, and I'll answer you that way if it feels like you're not comfortable asking that question in the Facebook group. But if you are, that's a good place to do it. Okay, well, that is it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with me. Thank you for the bravery of everyone who spoke up and took a turn and shared your process with us. I really honor your bravery in doing that. And then I will see you all again in 2 weeks. Okay, bye, everyone.